Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Green Apple Books on the Park. Thank you for joining us in person and also online. Hello, online audience. We're glad to have you here as well. Tonight, we're celebrating Beverly Burch and Robert Thomas and their latest poetry collections, Leave Me a Little Want, and Sonnets with Two Torches and One Cliff. Let's give a big hand to Beverly and Robert. Sorry, it took me a bit to give a hand. Thank you all for being here. I'm very excited to have both of these writers with us. And I have a brief bit of business, and I'll try and get us to the fun part of the evening as quickly as possible. Please do check out our event calendar on Green Apple Books website, greenapplebooks.com. We have a great season ahead of us. I'm a little biased, but if you enjoy the event that you are attending currently, you might like what we have coming up in the future, and I will tell you about just one that we have coming up. Next Thursday, a week from today, Rebecca Mackay is going to be joining us alongside Rachel Kong to celebrate Rebecca's latest book, I Have Some Questions for You. And that one is a ticketed event, which we don't ordinarily do, but the ticket is the cost of the book. So you show up. We probably won't have cake, so that's the downside to that event, but you do get a book out of it. So you can find tickets for that on our website at greenapplebooks.com. Please do imbibe as I'm talking right now. I am the least important part of the evening. This is just business, so please do grab a beverage for yourself. I would encourage you to do that. Thanks, Julie. And now would be a good time also to silence your cell phones if you haven't already. I recently started adding that to our business because it was pertinent to do so. So thank you for being accommodating in that regard. We appreciate it. Thank you also for buying books from tonight's poets. We have books, the most recent collections and one of Beverly's earlier collections at the front register. You can find them there, and then I think it's safe to assume that you would be willing to sign copies at the end of the evening. Okay. They're going to sign copies for you if you ask politely. If you've been here before, you've heard me say that when you buy books from us, you not only support us as an independent bookstore in our fair city of San Francisco, you also support the writers who put so much work into making these books possible, and then you get to have a book, which might be the best part. And again, then you get to have it signed. So if you're able, we always appreciate it. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first reader. Our first reader, Beverly Burch, is the author of 4 poetry collections, including Latter Days of Eve, winner of the John Ciardi Poetry Prize, and Sweet to Burn, which won the Geibel Poetry Prize and the Lambda Literary Award. She has also written 2 books on psychoanalytic theory and women's sexual and gender identifications, On Intimate Terms and Other Women. She lives in Oakland, California, and her latest collection, Leave Me a Little Want, is part of the reason we are here tonight. Please welcome Beverly Burch.
Thank you. I'm hoping this is going to be the right level. How's that? Okay, great. I'm going to read one poem from the last book because that book came out right at the beginning of the lockdown for the pandemic, and so I really didn't get to read from it anywhere or do anything. So I'd like to give it just a little bit of love after it had to go on the shelf so fast. And it's from the book Latter Days of Eve, which is really an account of Eve after Eden. She's been expelled from Eden. She's living in the contemporary world as well as the ancient world, and she's kind of had it with both Adam and God. This poem is called Apologia for Exposed Roots, and it's about the way that even in the face of catastrophe or disaster, sometimes there's something beautiful. It has an epigraph from Isaiah 61:3. Give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning. Forgive us how we are ravished by the blossoming face of disasters. We never meant to step outside and feel awe, but after explosions killed 40 strangers, the sky let a vein of jade and indigo. The day a firestorm feasted on homes, we felt a smack of reverence as noon sun turned red and crippled gods appeared in the spiky architecture of blasted oaks. Demiurge, maker who buckled us to cataclysm, must want us to keep looking. A landmine bears a filigree of exposed roots. A tsunami thumps open the sea's body like an egg. Not to stand and gawk, but see it all, and know it's about pain. Forgive us, we need apertures, even a small fracture. Otherwise, only a poor creature in the road, animal breaks howling. So now I'll read from the new book, Leave Me a Little Want, and I'm honored to be here to read to you all on this dark and stormy night. I really appreciate all of you for coming out. It's just lovely to see you here. And I also want to give a special shout out to the person who did the cover of the book, who's also doing some photography tonight. But she did this photographic composition that became the cover of the book.
What's her name?
That's Ellie Waxman. I'm going to open with a birth poem. First thing is birth. It's called Rumors of the Solitary Pulse. You feel the world as a weight. It's all that heavy air. Even a sparrow's song creates a little pressure. Once you were snugged inside a small organ, fed without opening your mouth. No need to work those precious lungs. Tiny jellyfish, how your arms waved, buoyant legs punted a soft wall. But the bud of the mind kept unfurling, pushing you toward the world. Oh, startling light, skip and jig of voices, honey touched of flesh. Rigged for reception, you were ready. Then the presence of air did you in. How separate you felt. And then another poem that goes back to very early life, pre-verbal life. And this is a poem about how as we grow into becoming adults, we gain all these new things, but we leave something behind. It really belongs in the pre-verbal world. It's the way language both gives us expression, but separates us in some ways from experience. It's called Born Again Sonnet. At first, I could only dream. Then language came, and I threaded dubious words together. Strands my mother wore proudly. Small explorer, I went after words. For years, brought them in from the wild. That treacherous province, like a jungle, doesn't thrive with such treatment. It loses its savage gleam, leaves only a lawn, tidy and precise. No more swarm, no rainforest threatening the village, just radios blaring the commonplace. Taken from primeval mud, what you unearth waste away. There is no cure. Today, my dreams come in unknown tongues. How can I understand them? Who can I tell them to? I wait for a new paradise, land without improvement, where speech is green and wordless. I'm going to read a poem in honor of the weather tonight. It's called Incantation for a Hard Rain. And this poem was written in the era of the drought. We were longing for some rain. Days the sky uncorked and sopped us through. We ran, we swore. Then drought, hills dusty as moth wing, primeval forests sickened. Oh, tempest, come back. Bring your pelting fury to the fields. Batter the fat leaves of the poplars. School us to stand real weather. The willows took it like saints and martyrs, swayed and moaned as they were thrashed. Towhees hunkered down. Bush rabbits, fragile spiders endured. Heaven of cloudy billows, send us a gray devil. No, weak sister. Don't slap us with hope and disappear. Teach us to grow lyrical as we're assailed. And then I'm going to read another poem to the weather. This one's called January. It could just as easily be called February. Time to practice, midwinter. Your heart's clock slows down. Your eye won't labor for small treasures, ignoring the velvety depth of gray fretwork, of branches against sky. It's easy to open up in April, young sun, one blooming thing after another, until you forget the casualties. An October's feast, showers of red on the street, gold on the table. Now chill burst of air cuff your face, and you say January's a brutalist. I say a master class, out of the numbed down life. Live at a child's pace. Dream in the languid streams of raw light. Sprays of berries drape winter greens. They won't last long. Neither will we, for that matter. But for a minute, be a fledgling in a breath-stopping world. I'm not brave, but I imagine wilder places, as if I might actually go, like the Arctic North, stripped of illusion. It would undo the schooling to brush off extinction, whether we survive this world. No remorse. It kills with unbearable beauty. I'm going to read a poem for someone in the audience. Who knows who? It's called Unsilked, and it's a love poem. Cinematic and literary, I dreamed of a woman wandering headlands in blithering fog. She liked a bit of storm and spent her evenings in black silk. Someone a little feral. We'd graze each other on a crowded sidewalk. She'd know I was the one. In fact, we met at a late night party, talked in the dark. She wore a t-shirt, jeans, perched drunkenly in a tree, unsteady as any girl on a slender pedestal, weeping over an ex. Next day, she didn't remember me. We both joined a women's group. She still didn't recognize me. These women laid out losses like exquisite rags. She left without speaking, said later, "What kind of women do that?" Afternoon at a nude beach, the Russian River, imagination geared up again, raced its twisted course. I pictured heartbreak, knew I'd need something to ease the pain, good drugs or better lies. In fact, there was infidelity. I won't say whose, but I wasn't ready for too much sanity. Breakage everywhere, neither china nor glass. We separated, linked up again, buried the past, unburied, buried. Crime flowers planted everywhere. What kind of women do that? One home after another, better rugs, a sectional sofa. A child who grew tender, feline, winding herself between our legs. We got old. Still, there's a shiver, right? The feral one, molted like a winter finch, learned nothing except to uncover, feather by splendid feather. We met at last, the intimate thing that lodges in sleeping bodies curled around each other. This poem is called Kitchen Muse, and it's a muse in the kitchen, just hanging out. Talking on his phone, a man walks by my window, baby strapped to his chest. The baby, facing forward, looks happy. Shiny new world laid out before her, safety at her back. But I'm thinking his call better be important, not just to break up boredom. Though God knows babies can be boring. Same game, same need, same distraction. Same bliss, too. Wrinkled up pleasure. Their generous eyes and uncivilized screeches sling arrows into our deep animal being. I'm at the other end, old, familiar world laid out before me, less of it, memory at my back. Some days, time's door opens as I'm waking, suspends me in the devastating gap between a dream of what's lost and a return to daily life. The view knocks me out. Time, wrinkled up pleasure. Now I miss the baby days. Squashy legs kicking my belly, heft of a padded bottom on my arm. I eye that man, baby bottle in hand, while I make breakfast. What work feeding hunger? Soil, seeds, field hands, machinery, cows, chickens, rain, drought. But for most of us, just fetching and cooking. That too a day's work, if it's prolonged complexity. Then a few minutes to devour it. Is everything like that? A blaze of effort, people, produce, quickly gone. I plan to walk later in Sibley Woods. Let trees do their work. Evergreens. They don't try to tell me anything. They stand there, same place, same rough feathers. As long as I look, they stop time in its tracks. Speaking of time, how are we doing?
It's fine.
Well, I'll read one more love poem. It's called Red Shirt. And in this one, my cat makes an appearance. He actually starts the poem off. In a little mess by the front door, the silk shirt signals how Kitty missed me. Dragged from laundry basket to where I disappeared, his token of fear, ache of absence. His world, he tells me daily, is me. Haunted by loss, oh, aren't we all? Lurching toward us, glacier of devastation, poised until we stop looking. Because I cherish you more than ever, I have dark dreams. How did love grow like that? Maybe time did it, the narrowed horizon. The long alley to age relieved me of baggage, opened my lovely armor, nothing but cracks and crumbling left. Cat chooses his daily totem. If it's a hard day, a pair of pants or heavy gray hoodie gets hauled down the stairs, through the house to that ruinous portal. His poor teeth, his jaws pulling such weight, dragging the thing between his legs. See how much I missed you. See what I offer for your return. I'd tote anything myself if I could secure you at time's threshold. Red scarf, heart locket, even the fleece blanket, snakeskin or toad split. So I'm just going to read two more poems. This poem is called Rumors of Ecuador and Elephants, and it ends with a little nod to William Blake. And this poem, I should say, it began from actually looking at a picture of what a cross-section of ivory looks like, which is extraordinary. It's just an amazing pattern that's inside it. Check out a cross-section. Ivory, creamy white tusk, sliced open, intersecting chevrons, organic geometry. In a parable, sightless men handle an elephant, one stroking the lengthy trunk, one a barrel leg, one a wide flank. Each insists the others describe the wrong animal. How to see the whole animal? Ropey tail, great flop of ear, bristled maw with shining hooks. Ecuadorian tribes share dreams at daybreak, fit them into an elegant puzzle, the real dream, a daily packet posted by the gods. Bracelets, piano keys, scrimshaw, sculpture, all of them butchered beast, a sequel to our not knowing how to dream. Our tribe, we hold tight, each with our own slice, little to see, infinity waiting for an open hand. And then I'm going to close with a sort of a companion poem to the first poem, which was a birth poem. So this is a poem at the other end. It's called Loose Sonnet. If the car spins out in a halo of lights, or the plane drops with a spiraling whine, could we please have a moment to loosen the stays, let this too dangerous flesh fall away? I'd like to learn how. Wear my skin like a loose suit. The way timber truck drivers careen 20-ton loads through the bitter roots, one leg at the door, poised to leap. If Sufis can slip from the body to cross the Aldama desert at noon, there must be a zipper, a soul-shaped crack. Blessed aperture, please let us out easy. Wasn't it enough that we came in screaming, bloody, everything screaming, that we were stupefied by light? Thank you very much.
Can we give one more hand to Beverly Burch, please? Excellent. I'm adjusting the mic as our next writer is taller than I am. And I'm very happy to introduce him. Robert Thomas, his newest book is Sonnets with Two Torches and One Cliff from Carnegie Mellon University Press. His previous book, Bridge, was a novella and won the Penn Center Award for Fiction. And his first book, Door to Door, was selected by Yusuf Komunyakaa as winner of the Poets Out Loud Prize. I'm very happy to welcome Robert Thomas.
This looks about right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Oh, William made it. Hey, great. I really appreciate. It really means a lot to a writer not to come to a reading and be facing a blank room. I really appreciate your coming, finding parking places if you didn't live in the neighborhood, and so on. And thank you to Carr Johnson, who's just made this really smooth and done a great job and been great to work with to get ready for the reading. I really appreciate it. And to Green Apple Books in general. It really is one of the great bookstores in the country, actually.
You're here.
And so I encourage you, if you feel inspired to buy one of our books or any other books, I encourage you to buy them through, even if you're watching this on YouTube, there are links that you can get the books through Green Apple, and that would be great. Especially since my book has a problem with Amazon. I was getting a bunch of emails from friends saying, I just got an email from Amazon saying they don't have your book after all, even though I pre-ordered it months ago. So you can get the book from Green Apple. I'm going to start. I'm going to start reading the first poem of the book. Sonnet with Backpack and Jack. For your big day, I bake you a Betty Crocker. Jack toasts a brioche he roughed up and then stuffed deep in his brick oven. I haul a haiku, awkward as a whale, ashore for you. Jack sings you an opera he wrote on the greenback of his backpack on BART, jamming Mozart and Trent Reznor's best riffs into a third thing. The music would make for itself if it had his hands. I burn cedar logs in a granite hearth. Jack sets your house on fire, then sprawls with you on wet grass till the heat hits the flash point. Your eyes widen, everything widens, and I am white thread, lost in the night's wide eye. Look at my notes here. As you can tell from I'll show the book here, Sonnets with Two Torches and One Cliff, because you have to see the front and back cover simultaneously so you can see how the antlers spread out. It is a book of 80 sonnets. I'm going to read 10 of them. Don't worry, each sonnet takes just about exactly a minute to read, so it's under control. They are 80 poems about love and jealousy of various kinds. In a musical sense, I like to think of the book in the form of theme and variations, whether Beethoven theme and variations or a jazz piece like Coltrane playing My Favorite Things, where first you have the basic melody played, and then it's replayed over and over, but in variations that get further and further from the original melody. And in that sense, these poems look at jealousy from further and further, hopefully surprising points of view as you go through the book. And also connected with that, the theme of God comes into the book more and more as you go through, in connection with jealousy. Sometimes someone is jealous of God, and sometimes God is jealous of someone. And that comes in this next poem, which is about the statue you may be familiar with of the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa by Bernini, the great Renaissance statue in Rome. Sonnet with Ghostwriter and Syringe. Who is that angel in Bernini's white marble of Saint Teresa? He's so strange. Her ecstatic communion is with God, not him, the winged sous chef who'll tenderize her flesh for the master to come. The ghostwriter who'll never get the credit or the girl and won't mind. He holds his arrow as lightly as an afterthought. No blood, no viscera. He lifts her disheveled gown like a pusher about to pierce the skin with such skill she'll feel just the aftermath, sudden shooting warmth. His beatific grin is because he knows her real bliss will come now with him, not after with him. Okay, I'll read if I can find it, the title poem of the book now. You may be familiar with the cliff La Quebrada off Acapulco in Mexico. It's been a tourist attraction for a long time, decades. I've never been there, but I know my mother was there when I was a child. And people jump off the cliff into the water underneath. One thing that comes up in this poem is, and one theme that comes up more and more in the book, as well as God, is the idea that one way jealousy works is that often the other man or the other woman who we think we're jealous of is really death, that we're afraid that death is going to take our beloved away from us or take us away from them. So, sonnet with 2 torches and 1 cliff. Are the divers off La Quebrada rehearsing their death, or just paying the rent? They need to calibrate the tides to make sure the water is deep enough. They need to take both space and time into account. Death is cold, but that turbulent sea can almost reach body temperature. I think, my love, you love that boy who risks breaking his graceful body into a million brilliant scintillae. Or so I imagine, rehearsing losing you. The night diver raises 2 torches in his outstretched arms, bundled sticks soaked in wax, sulfur, and lime, so their flames keep burning underwater. Sonnet with Q-tip and fugue. A man in bed lies wheezing in some pain. His age doesn't matter. He's old now because he's dying. He wants water. He wants orange juice more than sex or music. He wants someone to open the window just enough for him to hear the pigeons under the eaves, the shouts of the trucker asking where to drop the box of needles. You swab his lips with a juiced-up Q-tip. You change the horrid, inspirational organ chords the nurse picked to his beloved pink, screaming punk fugues. You begin to hope he has reached the unimaginable morning where he does not want another. Sonnet with Swan and Long Tall Sally. I find sometimes people aren't into the poems that much, but they like the titles. What if we're the crux, the diamond linchpin? What if creatures in other galaxies have a vague sense that something is missing, but don't know it's Little Richard, Shakespeare, cornbread with plum jam? They have their songs, but they're like the Rolling Stones' Voodoo Lounge, not Exile on Main Street. They're as if Monet stopped painting before he got to the water lilies. And their idea of sex is what dogs do, or Nixon's. Their squiddy eyes would see the most gauche galoot of us as Baryshnikov dancing Swan Lake on gold wires, dulcimer strings over water. And for what that dark lake is made of, their language has no words. Maybe wanted to mention the book is dedicated to my wife, Cheryl, who's standing in the back there.
The cake maker.
And the dedication is a line taken from one of Pablo Neruda's sonnets. I gathered the jasmine your footsteps left behind. And I think it's relevant to the book as a whole because it's one of Neruda's sonetos de amor, his love sonnets. And I like to think of it as giving a little hint that even though the sonnets are all about jealousy in one way or another, in a deeper sense they are love poems. And I think that comes through in the next couple I'm going to read. Sonnet with Schlock and Yonder. Multnomah Falls at Columbia Gorge. The sun slants from the southwest, and a gust flares so the falls blow down from the southeast. That moment when they converge in the pool below and we're staring into the core of Oregon. God comes like that. 7 seconds in Coltrane's love that justify the ways of love to man. Hardly ever does it last that long. All the rest is schlock and irrelevance. It was only 3 seconds that I watched you taste the gravy as it simmered, and I could see your eyes thinking hard about something, and my love went farther than the baby blue yonder. Sonnet with death and red check tablecloth. When I die, may you go to the dark place, which is what we call that Italian joint on El Camino. And may a waiter handsome as the devil himself whip up a carbonara from angelic eggs and sea salt cured prosciutto made from pigs nurtured on Parmigiano Reggiano. May you follow him down basil-scented halls to a storeroom. Lie down on a bed of coffee beans slick with dark roasted oils and forget me. Or at least may your memory, if God answers any prayers, be as faint as an old man's memory of the perfume his mother wore as she rocked him to sleep. The book ends with a series of 15 sonnets, a crown, and you may know the way a crown typically works is the last line of one sonnet becomes the first line of the next one. And I'm just going to read a little mini sequence of 3 sonnets from the middle of this crown, which I think work together as a unit. So 3 more poems. I'll just mention aurochs is the ancient animal that's like an ox that you often see in primitive cave paintings or on the cover of this book. Sonnet with ochre and aurochs. Descending into the cragged grotto, you see that darkness affects only one of your senses, while it frees the others. Water dripping from rough rock onto smooth. You and stone wrestle each other's sinews, a mash of mud and salt and ash and rose ochre clay slathers and anoints your skin. You smear your flesh against the sweating walls until they breathe with you, until they thrum. You have no memory of what happened there, but something tore and changed in your body. You wound the cavern around you like a cloak and left a perfect image on the stone. The wild aurochs, their sweeping, graceful horns. Sonnet with jokes and carjack. The wild aurochs, their sweeping, graceful horns. Would you dare take that form to come to me, knowing no human could compare to you? What's the difference, after all, between gods and humans? If I met Aphrodite at Kathy's for coffee, I couldn't tell from her skin or her figure. But her jokes would have a weird darkness. And when she said she'd seen it all, I'd look into her eyes and see she had. Her ex, the mechanic whose foot was gouged in the shop when the car jack broke. And her other lover, the man who sunk softly in her immortal arms as the wild, blood-glutted swine squealed victory. Sonnet with barn dance and solar storm. As the wild, blood-glutted swine squealed victory and thought you were his, I was conspiring with a lunar eclipse and a solar storm to win you back. One of them dips you in the Equinox Ballroom. The other push-pulls and whip-spins you to Battle Creek for a barn dance on the sprung space-time floor. It's not me you love, but that green-eyed fox who follows me around, one of the skulk, and the bad weather we bring, thunder snow over Black Lake. They're in my neighborhood, and they make you crazy in a good way. You love me the way swans love Michigan. You always come back for the dirty snow.
Bravo. Let's give one more hand to Robert Thomas. I think I'd like to invite, we have a little bit of time for Q&A if our poets would like to join us for a brief Q&A. Or do we want to keep partying? Okay. Excellent. Okay, so just for our in-house audience and for our online audience, please, if you have any questions, do ask them in the chat. And if I raise my hand, Beverly or Robert, that's from the internet.
Okay.
And let me get that.
Oh.
Okay, who's got a question?
Well, I want to say something actually before we start. But it's really fun to read with you, Robert. We have been part of a writing group for over 20 years, and there's some delightful members of our writing group who are here at this reading, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you to everybody else who's here. Your support is wonderful. And the people in our writing group, they've had their hands all over these poems. Left their traces behind. So thank you. And I think I forgot to thank Green Apple Books also when I was reading, but it's just wonderful to be here. And I hope you will support them now and in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's really wonderful. It just kind of happened that Beverly and I both had our fourth book of poetry come out at more or less the same time. So we've done this series of 3 readings together this month, and that's really been special.
Yeah, so anybody have anything they want to ask or say? Or?
Yes, Susan.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write this 4th book? How many years were you working on?
On this book?
Yeah, on this one.
Well, I wrote, I think, the first sonnets probably in 2014 or 2015. And I actually went way overboard. I wrote about 150 sonnets. And then I had to cut them back or I didn't have to. I could have included them all in a book, but I thought it would make a better book if I cut out about half of them, the weakest half, hopefully. So I worked on them. I think time is the best editor. You write a poem and you think it's great, and 2 weeks later you look at it and I could use a little work, and 6 months later you look at it and wow, I could use a lot of work.
For myself, I have no idea how long it took, because some of these poems I'd written before a while ago, but at a certain point you begin to sort of see you have a group of poems that are a book, and then it comes together in a different way, and then you write some more and you revise some more, and then you revise a lot more, and you keep working with the order of the book, and that's where it feels like you're really writing the book. Before that, you're just writing poems, that some of which go in the book and some of which don't.
I have a question for Beverly. Does your cat really drag stuff to your front door?
Oh, you bet.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he's a Maine Coon cat. He's
Oh, Okay, that kind of makes sense. They're
Yeah.
big and they're able to do that.
Yeah, no, he's a big guy. He's
Yeah.
close to 20 pounds.
Wow.
And, yeah. But yeah, he really drags things around. Every night, actually, before bedtime, he comes downstairs and brings us each a tissue in his mouth.
In case you're gonna sneeze, I guess.
Yeah,
you know.
just in case.
Just in case. How
I
cute.
just,
Kind of think I know the answer to this question, sort of, but what are you working on now, both of you?
Well, I'm actually working on another book of sonnets, but kind of thinking of what am I going to do beyond that, where I think I'm probably go back to prose poems. But I'm thinking of the new book is different in the sense that, I mean, this book, like I said, is all united under the general theme of jealousy, whereas the new manuscript I'm working on, I'm kind of letting it go, whatever direction it wants to go, all over the place.
and I have just finished writing a novel. It's the first novel. I've written fiction before, but I have a series of stories that just kind of became a novel. Sort of the way a series of poems sometimes becomes a book. But this developed into a novel, and I actually have a companion novel backed up behind it. And I'm also working on a book of essays. So, it just moves around.
And it's a really good novel. I've got a chance to read it since we are in a writing group together, and you're gonna like it.
Thank you. I have worked for years as a psychotherapist, and I closed my practice right before the pandemic, and I'm just kind of retired from that now, and I'm really just writing, and it's just unbelievable how freeing it is to just have that as what I do.
Robert, for those of us who don't remember if we ever learned, can you just explain briefly what characteristics a poem has to be a sonnet? What makes a sonnet?
Well, there are different definitions. I know Beverly's book has a lot of sonnets in it too. I mean, mine do not rhyme. It's a stretch to say they're in meter. They're almost like free verse sonnets. All of mine do have 14 lines, and they pretty much have about 10 syllables to a line. I mean, part of the appeal to me, it sounds really stupid, but I wanted to write poems that were kind of sonnet-shaped, sonnet-sized. It's a nice size for a poem, not too short, not too long. And I like that a lot. People talk about the sonnets have a volta in them, have a turn, which is sort of, you've read poems, not just sonnets, where whatever, the first 2/3 of the poem is on the theme of I hate you, and then the last third is on the theme of I love you. And that's kind of common in sonnets, but I tend to underplay that a little bit because I kind of think, come on, every good poem has a turn, otherwise it's just a boring poem that doesn't surprise you.
So, Robert, do you think you'll be writing any more fiction? Like Bridge?
I might do that after I finish the next book, although when I wrote Bridge, which is this novella, when I was writing it, and actually when I started submitting it to publishers, I called it Bridge, a novel in prose poems. And I really kind of, as I was writing it, I thought of it as poetry, more than as a novel.
I think it's one of those great examples of where you're writing something and it just kind of morphs into something on its own, because you brought those prose poems into the group periodically, and we didn't get that it was a novel until it sort of began to see, oh my God, there's a story here.
Yeah, I didn't get that it was a novel either. Let's go on, people on YouTube. Some questions in the chat. Yes.
Who are your poetic and/or greater literary influences?
Take that one.
Well, I would probably answer that differently every time I was asked. So this is just how I would answer it right now. I always have loved Louise Glick. She's one of my favorite people. Really got me into writing poetry a lot. I love Natalie Diaz's most recent book. I love the work of all the people in our group. Novels. I love. I've been reading a series of books by Maggie O'Farrell. I love her. That's who comes to mind at the moment.
Well, I'd mention, when you get to my age, there are like so many influences. It gets kind of ridiculous. I was really influenced by W.S. Merwin when I was 23 years old. But Louise Glick has been a big influence on me. I'll tell a little anecdote. I heard her give a reading. It must have been like in the 1970s. She had just published her second book, and she gave a reading at San Francisco State. And whoever introduced her gave this really condescending, kind of snarky introduction of her, like, oh, we asked her to read because we don't really like her kind of poetry out here because we're like really cool in San Francisco, but we thought you should know it exists. and I listened to the reading and I was just, oh my God, this is amazing. This is poetry, and it had a lasting influence on me. But I could name, the quote I gave of Neruda. Neruda has been a huge influence on me.
Keep going.
It was kind of interesting. There's this great book by Nabokov called 6 Lectures on Literature that I think someone transcribed lectures he gave at whatever university he was teaching. And he has one lecture on Proust. And he starts out giving like the 3 characteristics of Proust style. And I remember reading it and thinking, oh my God, this is how I write. I'm not Proust, but it was basically just the first one was long, convoluted sentences with convoluted syntax. And writing sonnets, it was kind of interesting, but actually you can do that in a sonnet, even though they're short. You may just have, a sonnet may just be one sentence, but you can do the convoluted syntax. And the second trait was long, convoluted metaphors, which I also love, which is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just kind of characteristic of my style. And the third thing Nabokov mentioned about Proust was skill with dialogue, telling a story through dialogue, which generally I don't do at all. I am terrible at dialogue.
I was just still thinking about Louise Glick after that anecdote, which is so funny, back from the 70s. I just saw her read. She was just in town 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, when she was reading at Cal. And she has a new book out, her gazillionth, I guess, and it was wonderful. And she has had such staying power. That's part of what's remarkable about her, that she is somebody who has, the whole career has been amazing. Everything that she has written, pretty much.
And part of it, I think she likes to do new things with new books. She hasn't stayed the same, for sure, for all those years.
Is this yet another book? I know right after she won the Nobel, there was this tiny little book of hers that came out. This super thin little book. Is there another one that's come out since then?
Yeah, I think this is a brand new one. And I can't tell you the title of it, but yeah.
Green Apple Can.
Yeah.
Has winter in the title.
The Winter Collective, that was the last one. I mean, not the second to last one. There's something newer that I can see. I think it's prose poems, or even prose.
She's had quite a few that have come out in the last in the last decade. It's amazing how many have come
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And often very different too.
Yeah. Carl?
We have time for probably one more question, and I do have one from our online audience. Leslie asks, how do you know an idea is meant to be written about?
That's a really good question. Sometimes I think like 90% of writing poetry is, you got all these thoughts going through your mind, a million thoughts. How do you learn to recognize, oh, that's an interesting one, that'd be worth writing down? That's sometimes seems to be the main skill of a poet, recognize, and often there are these loud thoughts in your mind, you have these passionate beliefs in this or that, but there are these soft little whispers that are kind of in your peripheral vision. And sometimes that's where the most interesting stuff is happening. You always think that what you want to write about is the loudest, most passionate stuff, but sometimes you need to listen to those soft little whispers, and there may be something really interesting going on there.
I was just thinking that my answer is you don't. You don't know. But that sometimes something comes to you and you just start working with it, and then language comes in. It's the language that tells you that you've got a poem. If something can really start to bring out interesting language that you think, oh, this is going to be fun to work with. Let's just stick with this for a while. And then the idea that got you started is often not even in the poem by the time you're done with it. It's just sort of the triggering event. At least that's the way I write. I don't think I ever start out to say, I am going to write a poem about this, and then this is where it's going to go, and this is what it's going to do.
So more often, do you begin with image or thought?
It can be anything. It can be a phrase. Often it is just like, oh, this line, I really like this line. But where's this line going? What's it about? Or a place. Sometimes it's a place, I just think of a place and it just feels like there's something about that place that things would be happening there, or things did happen there, or something. It's just evocative of something. How about you, Robert?
Yeah, I would agree that it can be a lot of things, an image, a thought, an emotion, but I would kind of say that for me, language is the least likely thing to be the start of a poem. I don't very often I hear a line, I hear a sentence. I tend to start with something else. I think of it as like dreams. Typically most people's dreams, the dialogue is minimal. When you remember a dream, it's imagery, something's happening, you're riding a horse, you're scared, you're angry, but you don't typically remember dialogue that much. And I think poetry for me comes from a similar place.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pardon me. Can we give one more hand to Beverly Burch? Thank you all for being here with us. We have copies of Beverly and Robert's books at the front register. You can find them there, and you bring them back here. They will sign them for you. We also have other books. Please make yourselves comfortable. Also, it would be a shame to send one person home with all of that cake. So please have do imbibe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.